Hi. Okay, so I don't usually make videos. This is something that I've been thinking about, and as most things tend to happen in my life, there are like common themes that happen all around me with the people that I love and the people that I care about. And then there's an underlying thread that seems to just kind of connect us all. And so I've been noticing, I was going to say a concept, but actually, what I've been noticing is a question around a concept that's been coming up for people and coming up for me personally. And I'm making this video for a close friend of mine with them in mind, but also with other people in mind who I really care about. And hopefully this can help. And I'm rocking the Pooh Bear today, which is, I always tell my kids it's um my first guru was Pooh Bear, and there was a lot of wisdom. I felt like in that book. It was just like simple wisdom. Um and just in the spirit of transparency, I'm going to start with what lens I'm looking through, because I feel like that's important. I feel like we all have different lenses that we look through, and mine, and I don't think that anyone was just born on an island and they're completely uninfluenced by the things around us. So, keeping that in mind, when I'm sharing this idea, it's been forged from my lens, my perspective, my life experiences, my studies, my exposure, and the people around me as well. And so, that includes my childhood upbringing, which I'll just share was not all rainbows and unicorns. My struggle to try and connect with others, and the obstacles that arose that were in between us. My studies, so I do have a master's degree in clinical counseling. I have worked with severe and persistent mental illness. I have worked with the homeless. I have worked with addictions, and I have worked on college campuses. um, I've worked with families and children, and I don't practice anymore. I don't even do anything in that line anymore. Um, but it has shaped me, and it does influence the way that I see things, and my experiences with the struggles in my own life and with the people in my life has shaped the way that I experience things. And then there's also spiritual elements that have greatly impacted me, and religious elements as well. And so, keeping all of that in mind, that does inform the lens that I look through and where this idea is coming from. Okay, so this is about emotional healing. And I liken emotional healing specifically to cleaning a fish tank. I know that probably sounds weird, but it's something that I used to think about when I was a kid and I was cleaning the fish tanks that me and my dad used to do together. And they would get really dirty and really murky, and then we would have to kind of sift through the sludge a little bit. We'd have to filter out what wasn't good. We had to pull a lot of it out. We had to pull in the new. And I feel like that's a really good metaphor for emotional healing. That is how emotional healing takes place. And it gets uglier before it gets better. And then you have to let it settle, and then you can see, okay, so we're a lot clearer now. And sometimes you have to do it quite a few times to really clarify the water. And you don't throw out all of the water at once. You don't just like dump the whole thing and end it and then, fill it back up, because some of it is useful. So that's why it's like a process of purging and bringing in the new, and purging and bringing in the new. And everybody has to do this process for themselves. So we are the cleaners of our own fish tank. No one can come and clean my fish tank for me. And that is my fish tank that I'm in charge of, that I'm responsible of. And sometimes people dump their sludge in our fish tank, and this is where trauma comes from. Sometimes it's a slow process of just spilling sludge over into us over and over and over again, and it just kind of eventually our waters get really gross. Or it's just one traumatic, just somebody just really dumps a ton of sludge in the air, and we may not have the ability or the skills or the know-how to be able to clean all that out. And sometimes we get stuck on the question of like, why is it our responsibility to clean it out? They are the ones that dumped it in there. And so there's a lot that goes into that. And something that we have to keep in mind is the emotional body, our fish tank, it also goes along with our mental body. And I think of the mental body as like a caretaker to the fish tank. And if our mental body is out of whack, and this is like where you would see different beliefs, different habits, behaviors, things like that. That's kind of more in the realm of our mental body and different systems, and that directly affects how we caretake for this fish tank, right? So for example, if we have the belief that tough people don't have to clean their fish tank, then that is gonna stop us, right, from caretaking to our fish tank, and we're not going to. Or maybe we have the idea that like we're ashamed of our fish tank, right? Because it's getting really dirty, it's getting really ugly, and we just feel like no one's gonna love us if they see this, right? So we try and hide it, or we try and distort reality, right? We could use illusions, we can use substances, we can use manipulation or mind trickery or any and all of the above to try and be like, my fish tank's not dirty. This isn't what you're seeing, right? And so if your mental body is out of whack, then it can be in direct conflict with your emotional body. You won't caretake for your emotional body the way that you're supposed to. You'll either abandon it, you'll try and change it into something that it's not, you'll try and push it off onto somebody else, you'll try and hide it. Like there's so many defense mechanisms that arise, and those defense mechanisms come in social contexts. And so that's an important distinction, because they usually get really exacerbated in social contexts around other people, because that is when we fear someone seeing our fish tank for what it is. And that is when we start doing odd things to try and cover up what that fish tank looks like. So, in those social contexts, we start to feel afraid that maybe somebody might notice, or we just come up with a lot of dysfunction in that space when our mental body is at odds with our emotional body. And you can probably see how things can get really messy really quickly. We might start hanging out with people who we feel are not good at seeing our fish tank. So it makes us feel safer because they're just kind of oblivious. But then we're also not getting like the real connection and validation that we need. And we're still neglecting our own fish tank. So none of us are really healing. We're just kind of in this state of stagnation and hiding. Or you might like feel more comfortable with other people who have really dirty fish tanks. And that's problematic as well, because what happens is if everybody's fish tank is really dirty, it's gonna like sludge out and slosh out into each other's fish tanks, and you're just gonna end up like micro traumatizing yourself over and over and over again, as long as you all shall live, until somebody takes the initiative to make changes and to take accountability and responsibility for that emotional healing journey. So let's talk about that, because things could get really messy really fast. This is true. Just, it could get really toxic, you know. You can end up incarcerated, you can end up homeless, you can end up in so many different situations. You could be in just wild dating triangles and just all of this discomfort and unhappiness, right? You could be in like emotional abuse dynamics, and there's just a lot that could happen. You could also end up physically ill because our emotional body affects our other planes as well. So that sludge is going to spill out. It's going to spill out into our physical body as well. And it's going to show in different ways. Different habits and behaviors affect it, but even if you have pretty good habits, it still will show up. And the takeaway here, though, is that it could also go really well pretty quickly. And I think that's something that is wildly misunderstood. I think a lot of people kind of stumble into their emotional healing by, you know, maybe they were incarcerated and they're forced to go to services, or, you know, randomly stumbling upon a video or something like that. And I'm not saying that that's not wonderful, because that is wonderful, but with intentionality, you could actually really shorten the timeline. And with understanding of what process you're in and how it works, you could really shorten the timeline. And you could also make major impacts just by doing your own, cleaning your own fish tank. You can impact your entire circle around you. And life will just change in general. It'll just reformulate around you. And it's really beautiful how it works. And I've seen it happen firsthand. I know that it does happen. I know that it can happen even quicker with an intentionality behind it. And there's reasons that people don't clean their fish tank. Part of that is that they don't think they can. They don't think it's possible. Or it's overwhelming. They were struck with some major toxic sludge and they don't know how to sift through it. That could be it. Or I think a lot of times, you know, we perpetuate these beliefs in our cultures, in our microclimates with our friends and our family, maybe we've sought out assistance and they're like, yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. You just gotta deal with it. But it's not true. And other reasons that we don't deal with it is because it takes courage. Because it does get murkier before it gets better. Because we don't know exactly what the healing is going to look like on the other side, and that might scare us. Because we might be quite a bit uncomfortable in the process. Because then we would have to look at some of those illusions that we tell ourselves. We would have to actually look at ourselves instead of other people, and that can be really hard for some of us too. And so if you're in this spot where you're wondering, is it even worth it? I say absolutely. And if you have fears that you're not going to be the same person, I would say that the essence of your soul is going to stay the same. The behaviors and the dysfunctions that were needed to mask your dirty fish tank won't be needed anymore. They serve their purpose, and they just won't be needed anymore. And you'll be able to have better connections with people. You'll be able to have a wider influence. You'll be able to feel better on the inside. You won't want to hide. You won't want to shame yourself. Your mental will not be at war with your emotional. And so when we're cleaning the fish tank, yeah, we're going to stir it up a little bit. But we're going to be purging and clarifying it as we go. And people always say, like, healing's a lifelong journey. And if that's really intimidating, I would say that actually the bulk of the healing can happen pretty rapidly. Like in the first 3 years of really like putting on your galoshes and getting in there, you can clarify this fish tank really well. And then the rest of it is just like maintenance. You'll notice people will slosh some into your fish tank, and then you'll have to like clarify that as you go. You'll know what to do. You'll be comfortable sitting in the discomfort. You'll know that it's only going to hurt for this momentarily discomfort, and I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to process it. And then as I get through to the other side, I'm going to be even better. I'm going to have the lessons. I'm going to leave the pain behind. I'm going to get even quicker and faster at cleaning out my fish tank. And I'm just going to be all around healthier. And the mental body is important because the mental body is the protector of your fish tank too. And as you go through this process, you also learn, okay, that person has a really dirty fish tank and it's sloshing out into mine. And you learn how to handle that, and you learn what control you do have, and you're empowered in the process. And you learn the skills on how to identify what's going on with that person, but also how it's affecting you. And the options open up for you. We can't change other people. We can't clean their fish tank for them. We can't make them clean their own fish tank. And that's something really important to know as you're moving forward. So what can we do? Because sometimes when we go through this healing process and we're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, I'm doing it. I'm seeing the changes it's making in my life. I want this for everyone around me. I want to share this peacefulness, this inner peace, this power that I possess with others. And so what you can do is you can directly influence them through them, letting them see your inner journey, inviting them into that if they want to. You can ask them for permission to talk about certain things, but you have to be really mindful of the line between autonomy and control and responsibility. And you have to understand whose responsibility it is and whose it isn't. Now, things change a little bit when we're talking about children, because the thing about children is that their mental body is not fully formed. So they don't have the caretaker to their fish tank. Excuse me 1 second while I take a drink. Okay, so they don't have the mental body to care for their emotional body. And what happens is they also don't have as much power over their environment. So whereas we can, if you imagine a chessboard and we can only move ourselves as a piece, and we can also choose which team that we're on, that is the realm of our control. We can use that information to make boss moves, right? we can strategize. We can be like, okay, I'm not going over there. That's a danger zone. I'm going over here. We have more authority. Children don't have that. And a lot of times they're born into families where all of the people with their dirty fish tanks are pouring into their fish tank. All children start out with a crystal clear emotional body, a clean fish tank. It's spectacular. It's beautiful. Children are pure and wonderful and good. We're all born good. And then this sludge is just like all the people around you who have not learned how to clean out their own fish tank, and they're spilling out onto other people. And they're harming them, and they don't maybe even know that they're harming them, and maybe they have good intentions. A lot of times there's wonderful intentions behind it, but they're still harming them. And the children don't have the mental body to be able to go through the process of being like, hey, this is my fish tank. This is a part of me. I'm not ashamed of it. It's, even though it's dirty, it's not bad. It just needs to be cleaned out. It can be just as good as new as before. They don't have the wherewithal to sit with those feelings. And a lot of times it's also really hard to help them once their fish tank is like really dirty. It can be really hard at that point, because our goal and our job was to actually protect them and model to them how to clean their fish tank along the way and to avoid spilling out onto them. That was our personal responsibility. That was our dominion and authority over our children. And yeah, we all make mistakes, but again, we can sit with it, we can apologize, we can work through it together, and we can do that process. It's an interactive process. It's a relational process. And if the foundation blocks aren't there anymore because there is no trust in between the providers and their children, or their circumstances has changed, then it makes it more challenging. a lot more challenging, but not impossible. We can still model that process. We can still show it as it's happening in the moment. And we can kind of clear out that sludge as we go. We can connect them to providers who can assist them in looking at those emotions and feeling comfortable with those emotions. We can change our culture in our families. We can change them from shame-based cultures and pride-based cultures to growth mindset cultures, to acceptance cultures, which gives the space for someone to be loved and accepted despite their dirty fish tank. So we definitely have a lot of power over that dominion. We can sit in, we can have like family meetings where we discuss like, hey, I want to hear everyone's thoughts about like what they feel like would be good for our family, what they feel like would be bad for our family, how they feel like things should be handled, stuff like that. You can have a more relational and kind of interpersonal dynamic with your family where that you're respecting that person's autonomy and you're allowing them a voice in the changes that need to be made. And then you're also given the same ability to share your thoughts and your voice. And with this, I feel like transparency is important because you don't want to like nail people down to a table and be like, tell me your thoughts and we're not leaving here until you figure this out. That's definitely not the approach. I think advance heads up that you're going to try this and that this is going to be the topic for the night, and like give us some time to ponder and think about it, and then everyone is going to have a chance to share their thoughts. I think definitely there is a way and not a way to go about that. And so with parenting, it's kind of like, yes, you need to know all of the potential dangers out there. You need to have a skill set. You need to monitor where you're at, like really and truly, honestly. Everything we need to do with honesty and transparency. No illusions. No, we're going to be the perfect family and no one here has any problems and just act right and your fish tank is clean now, so just pretend like it is because that's what I expect from you. None of that. That's all in shame culture. We're not going to do that. But the parent is the way shower for their children. And if you imagine it like you're a nature tour guide, you need to know like, okay, yeah, we've got mountain lions here. What do I do in case of that? Bears. If we go hungry, blah, blah, blah. You need to have the skill set to be able to know what to do in those things. But you also have to understand that those people are choosing their own direction. And you're just there to support them with whatever tools that you have, and to help them build their own confidence through trying. And the way that we do that is through failing. And if someone is afraid to fail, then I think that that requires a little more tenderness and nurturing for someone to be secure enough to fail and to fail good. That's what I tell my kids. If you're not failing, you're not trying. And that's something that we all need to practice, including myself. So I guess I just want to say that as we get better at cleaning our fish tank and we are doing really well at purging it, we're getting more comfortable with the discomfort that comes when we first stir it up. We're building our courage to look at these things, to look at the patterns that we're living out. We start doing the work on our mental body, those belief systems that maybe aren't supportive of the kind of love that we're trying to cultivate and grow and the kind of environment we're trying to have. As we get more comfortable with being in the arena, right? Because it's so easy to be out in the stands and to tell everybody what they need to do down there, and oh, it's so obvious. But as we get comfortable actually being in the arena ourselves, having the courage is huge. If you have courage, you can overcome these things so quickly, very quickly. And as our mental body is growing and we're able to identify where other people are at in the process, we have to start realizing where boundaries come into play. And we have a few options. So say we start to notice that somebody's fish tank is really murky, and we can see that it can be cleaned, right? We know this, we've experienced it, we've lived it, we know it works, we've seen it happen for people, and we know there's something on the other side. But maybe that person has some mental beliefs that in their mental body that stop them from taking care of their fish tank, their emotional body. And as they're at war with their emotional body, they're trying to deny it or repress it or drown it out with, substances or social media or, whatever it may be. If someone doesn't want to change that, we can't change it for them. And so we're at this crossroads and we have some decisions to make. If someone is pouring their sludge out onto you and you're constantly like cleaning it up in your own fish tank because it's spilling out onto you, and you live with this person or you see this person every day and they're just a staple of your life, you have a few choices. And one of them is to accept that until they want to or are willing to or are able to see past the mental body illusions, you have to make peace with cleaning your fish tank all the time. Like all the time. It will be a daily thing. You'll get really good at it. It will make you very strong and capable. It will also soak up a lot of your time and energy. And it could hold you back from experiencing what it's like to not have to clean out your own fish tank all the time, constantly. Because, some of us have done enough work to where the water stays pretty clear on its own without those people dumping into us. So that is a choice, to choose to be okay with cleaning your own fish tank all the time. The other choice is to make distance, physical, mental, or emotional distance. And maybe that looks like until they change, if you want to save space for them. But you absolutely don't have to, and that can be a little heavy on the heart. But if you those are the really only two moves that you have. If your intention is to sit there and try and force them to see and force their healing, it's not the right way, and it's overstepping for sure. Something that I personally do that I feel most comfortable with is if someone's spilling out onto me all the time, then I will let them know. I will have a courageous conversation with them. I will tell them how it affects me, how harmful it feels on the receiving end. And at that point, if that person is willing to make adjustments and they see it as fair and they understand it and they want to engage in like, oh, okay, I didn't know that about you, Courtney, you know, now that I understand that, I can see your perspective and I am going to try not to do that again, then I think that's wonderful. That's a working dynamic because none of us are perfect and we all sludge out onto other people. There's no one who doesn't do that. So I've always appreciated the opportunity to see things from someone else's perspective and to make changes. If you know that the request someone is making is something that you don't think you can do, or it seems unreasonable and you don't understand it, then you need to let them know. Because it's not fair to stay in a stronghold with someone and in an infinity loop of just repainting each other. That's not fair. So, and they should let you know too, if they don't feel like they can do that. And then the other thing is that sometimes, and actually I'm not going to say sometimes because I see this quite often, people don't want to do their healing, but they want to give it to you. So, like, yeah, you look capable, you know what to do with all this shit. I'm going to give it to you and you're going to be the holder of this and you're going to fix it for me. No, it doesn't work. It can't work. That person is the only person who can do it. And if that's their mindset, and if you maybe have a hero complex and you're like, yeah, that feels good and I do want to be the reason someone's water gets clear, you know, it's not going to end well because the only person who can clean your fish tank is you. That's it. No one else can do it for you. And if someone is avoiding cleaning their fish tank, then there's also issues in the mental body that need to be addressed. There are maybe spiritual lessons that are supposed to be gained from that. And you don't want to steal someone's spiritual inheritance from them by not allowing them to go through their own journey. Because we all have our own journey. So that's something to think about. And I think a lot of people are like, no man left behind. But everyone has free will. And if they want to be left behind, or they want you to carry them to the top, that can't happen. It wasn't designed for it to be that way. All you can do is help them or walk with them on the way up. That's perfectly okay. And if they need someone there for comfort along the way, that's absolutely okay. And we've all been there too.